Doug, we're going to get started. So, good evening, citizens and guests, as well as council and staff. And City Clerk, are we ready with the roll call?
Yes, sir. Mayor Sinanek.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Beckman.
Here. Councilmember
Brinkman. Here. Councilmember Cole.
Here.
Councilmember Hopping.
Here.
Councilmember Stallman.
Here.
Councilmember Valdez.
Thank you. And this evening, first up on our agenda is a brief presentation. Then we have public comment, if any, on our consent agenda for the evening. And then we'll have a short period of adjournment, moving from the special meeting to the study session for this evening. And then we have 3 agenda items on the study session for this evening. So, any questions? Okay. And with that, first up is it's a very pleasant evening that we have a chance to recognize a company to watch. Not that they haven't been worthy of being watched before this, but as determined by folks from outside of Littleton, a company to watch. They're on the 2015 list for this year, and the company is Engrain. They're located over at Riverside Downs, and they have about 50 employees or so, and they're a privately owned company. Sales and revenue went up 112% over the last year and 292% over the last 3 years. They've been around since 2004, so they're kind of still in the reasonable growth stage at this point in time. And I'm going to read a little bit about where they are in a proclamation. They were founded in 2004. They're located in Littleton, and they currently have 50 full-time employees, of which maybe 10 or so use public transport and bicycles bicycles to get to work. They have some award-winning software, and it's for real estate developers and multifamily property managers as they take a look at that. And there's all sorts of things on how it's really neat to use, and probably someone that's in the hotel business might also be interested in some of this. And so they work closely with their customers to craft attention-grabbing user experiences for prospective residents using multi-touch, gesture-sensitive screens that provide floor plan renderings, photos of amenities and details and finishes of residential properties. And I think today's a special day because you also have had a chance to announce a new software project that's here. And so we have Jill Bergquist, who's Director of Customer Experiences, and Audrey that's here. And would you like to add anything?
Sure. I would first like to say thank you so much for having us. We're honored and humbled. Littleton is literally our home since almost our inception, and Engrain has been here. We did have a press release today on one of our new products, and we actually brought the press release. So if anyone would like to grab one, please feel free. We also brought some invitations to an open house that we're having not next week, but the week after. So we would love to see anyone who would like to come by and learn more about Engrain.
And, of course, the folks that brought some of the information to us are the folks from the Economic Development Division, and so that's Denise and Rika, who are also here. And would you like to introduce the employees that are here, because it represents, about 12 or 15% of your employee group that's actually here this evening?
Absolutely.
I'll do that, yeah. So we actually have 2 new sales guys. This is their second day. So we continue to grow. So with these guys, we're expecting to expedite that much more. We also have Nicole, who's Director of our Talent Development. So as we've been growing, we really need a person in-house that's focused on finding new talent for us. And she does an awesome job, really. And dedicated to getting top people in and understanding a good fit for our culture and software. So, yeah, that's everybody today. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And we have a proclamation that we're going to hand to them. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm going to be out of town for you. Thank you. Thank you. And it's always a pleasure to have successful businesses being recognized by not only within the city but also outside of the city. So, and one other little piece is their somewhere in the top 1,500 of the Inc. 5,000 list of privately owned companies and what they've been doing, so in the latest list that's there. So, we now have an opportunity for public comment on our consent agenda. Is this our sign-up sheet? And we have no one designated on the list. I didn't know if anyone wanted to approach this evening. Have you let the city clerk know which agenda item you'd like to speak to?
We don't have the timer in here, but I'm going to time on my watch. I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds left. Okay.
Jeez.
Hi, I'm Leah Burkett from South Bemis Street in District 1, and I had a question regarding the 2016 schedule of fees that you'll be discussing soon. On page 7 of the fees, there is sanitary sewer service charges, and my question is around classification B for multiple family residential users. My question is, I've lived in apartments before, and I know that in an apartment you are a user of the sewer, but I never got a bill for that. So I want to know whether that's billed per unit or per structure, and I think that a clarification of language is needed there so that nothing is interpreted away. A multiple family structure should certainly not be billed less than a single family household. So I'd like to see a cleanup of language there to make sure that that is a per unit charge. Every unit in a multifamily structure does create sewer waste. So just hopefully you'll have that discussion tonight and add that. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. And is anyone else interested in approaching?
I was going to ask for a restatement of where in that.
It's on page 7.
7, okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Deborah Gallegos, and I live on Bemis Street, right across from the planned development. And I have the same question as Leah Burkett, and it has to do with the sewer charges and how you're doing that, if you're doing that on the number of taps or whatever, and if that somehow justifies this gross development across the street from my historic house. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you. And then council will move on to the consent agenda. There are 2 items on the consent agenda, 4A and 4B. These can be passed by a single motion. They will be read by title, so before that, and there's the opportunity for any council member, if they would so choose, to pull an item from the consent agenda. So first up is consent agenda item 4A. This is ordinance 98-2015. It's an ordinance on first reading approving the amended general planned development for Littleton Village, and it schedules the second reading for the evening of November 3rd. And with that, not part of the title is there will be included in the second reading an update from last night's planning board meeting in the material that we will get for the second reading. Next up is consent agenda item 4B. This is ordinance 100-2015. This is an ordinance on first reading adopting the 2016 fee schedule and setting the second reading for the evening of November 3rd. Council looking for a motion on the consent agenda items, including 4A and 4B.
So moved.
Second.
Council, there's a motion to approve 4A and 4B in front of us. And City Clerk, do you want a show of hands?
I'll just do a roll call.
Okay.
Mayor Sinanek?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Beckman?
Yes.
Councilmember Brinkman.
Yes.
Councilmember Cole.
Yes.
Councilmember Hopping.
Yes.
Councilmember Stallman.
Aye.
Councilmember Valdez.
Aye.
Thank you. And with that, that concludes our special meeting for this evening, and the city clerk will note the time. Thank you much, and we'll take a 3-minute break to allow for the technology to be put in place. It may be a little bit longer than that, so let's make it 5 minutes. At 1:15, we'll reconvene.
Or he's waving me off.
I'll get it in a minute.
It's like a plane coming.
Is that what that was? No, he's a citizen. Really interesting.
A little mood later. You're gonna.
Okay, council, we'll reconvene. My understanding is Denise is going to be using a presentation, so I've tried to make the lights appropriate for that. And Denise Stevens is our Director of Economic Development and is going to be giving us a department head update. City manager, anything else to add?
Okay.
Okay.
Well, good evening. Thank you very much for taking time to hear an update from our department. A while back I was asked to put together a presentation on economic development, and so I went out and I was researching definitions and thinking about my own experience with other organizations, and I ran across this statement that said, economic developers shoot everything that flies and claim everything that falls. And I have found that to be true with a lot of agencies. And so when I started here, I wanted to be very different than that. And I have a really good team. And so what we have worked on is building relationships, both with businesses, business owners, and people who develop properties. So we feel like we've gotten to a really good place with that. But I can see how it's very hard for anyone who doesn't work with us on a daily basis to even know what this looks like. So the main things that we focus our attention on are business retention, business attraction, business education, business development and growth tools. We work on the revitalization incentive grant. This year we've been focusing on some downtown district improvements, and then we provide quite a bit of interdepartmental assistance. But what I thought I'd do is I would outline some projects in a couple of those areas to kind of give you an idea of how we work. So the first one is, actually the first three are going to be business retention project examples. So this one is a recruitment assistance project. So staff reviewed a job description for a sales manager and vacancy announcement and suggested changes to the announcement that emphasize the company's growth and expansion plans. The company was encouraged to add information to their career section of the website that would help attract the desired candidates. Examples of effective recruiting pages were provided. Staff suggested using Indeed Resumes, which is a company known for its recruiting because it reaches targeted candidates and is cost effective. And examples of search that they use using relevant keywords was provided to this particular business owner. Staff also researched and verified that the salary offered follows the Denver market for that position. And they researched and provided profiles of personalities with highest success in the position and provided information related to hiring millennials for the position. And I was told by staff today that they've actually hired 3 people using these particular things that the department provided. A lot of what we do for existing businesses has to do with marketing, and virtual marketing in particular. So we recently met with a company owner to discuss their business, and our team previewed their website and provided visitor feedback. Following that meeting, staff performed additional research and found the company website needed extensive help and search engine optimization, assistance with content and usability. A second meeting was held with the business owner to address various website issues, optimization issues, issues with images, developing engaging content, and moving to a new website technology. Also covered was the basis for suggesting a new website basis and thoughts on designs and layout. One of the principals mentioned that he wasn't expecting much from the meeting because he assumed we were just the typical government department. But the business owners were very happy with the meeting and indicated they found the research information highly valuable and that they would implement. Then a generalized business retention effort. We pay attention to various retail centers around the city and periodically take a look at things that we might do to help engage their tenants or engage them in a process that might improve the situation. So a particular retail center has been underperforming in Littleton for several years. Revenues are between 30 to 50% below expectations. So staff has met several times with merchants to suggest things about improving their visibility and their customer visitation. And then we've met at several times with the property managers to discuss potential solutions for access issues, not changing access, but mitigating access issues, and then signage improvements that might help visibility. So We will continue to work with the property manager and the merchants to improve the customer visits and increase sales. So they do appreciate the fact that we keep revisiting this and presenting them with other options. I think they know that they're loved here. So, and then there may be some concern about how often we communicate with the larger business community, because there's a lot of focus on downtown. But just to demonstrate, we have about 1,070 businesses in our database that have opted in for communications. And one of the things we do is we respect whether they opt out or not. So of the 2,400 some businesses that we have in the database, 1,070 are willing to receive regular communications from us. And so they receive our monthly economic notes, and each is notified of upcoming business sessions, business education sessions that they can attend. And staff sets up regular site visits around town, so somebody from our staff is constantly going out and visiting existing businesses. And then we have representatives that attend the downtown historic meetings. And on behalf of council, each month our department researches and tracks and mails business appreciation cards from all of you to those having an anniversary in any given month. So some examples of business attraction activities, and these are obviously a longer process, but an example would be in December of 2013, a developer contacted our department asking for an analysis of a specific location. We provided detailed reports and competitor information within hours of the request. We communicated once a month with the general manager, checking on the status of the project and offering to assist with additional information. Over the next 2 years, the developer considered vacating the project twice. We continued communications, provided additional information and encouragement. The second reconsideration was over an adjacent development. So we contacted the general manager and sent renderings for the adjacent development showing a design to which they had no objection. So the property was purchased, the site plan approved, and the project is under construction. And then our department will continue to work with the GM and the site manager to assist with marketing and recruitment efforts. Second business attraction. A business owner, and this demonstrates how we work with other departments, but a second business owner was looking for an additional location in Littleton. He was interested in an existing building on a site along Santa Fe, and yet another company was selected to lease the site. Community development let economic development know about the outcome and provided contact information for the business owner. We called the business owner and asked if we might help with alternative locations in Littleton. We provided 2 locations that met his requirements and scheduled a meeting to discuss the proposed development and what would be required. Later, the property owner purchased the property but had concerns emerging over project costs. So we contacted the lead on another business relocation to see if they would be willing to be introduced to this property owner. They agreed, and plans moved forward to share the property for both uses. We've communicated regularly with that business owner to check on the status of the project and let him know that if we can provide any other information, we're available. So site plans have been submitted and reviewed, and the property owner is working out agreements with adjacent property owners, and the project is moving forward. The project owner has worked with other cities and indicated he really appreciates the professionalism shown by Littleton staff. Then regarding a redevelopment, a property was on the market for several months. A potential buyer developer contacted economic development in July of 2014. We provided details on the property, current zoning, and permitted uses. In September of 2014, per request, we researched potential uses proposed by the buyer developer. The property was then purchased in 2015, and a preliminary site plan was presented in a pre-submittal in September. Economic development has connected the current property owner with others who may be interested in leasing space once the project is complete.
Something we don't need them down. Please, thank you.
And then one last business attraction effort. Recently, a tenant vacated a Littleton property, and Economic Development met with the property owner to review proposed improvements and tenants he would like to pursue. We made several suggestions on potential tenants and agreed to do some research and provide contacts, which we did. We scheduled a follow-up concept meeting with the property owner and planners from community development. Staff offered suggestions for improvements that were well received by the property owner. And then staff contacted a site selector representing a high-profile tenant who previously considered a Littleton location but decided not to land here. That site selector indicated that that particular business would be interested in revisiting a location in Littleton, and now he's connected with the property owner. So communication efforts with the development and commercial real estate community include regular follow-up with different developers and commercial real estate professionals when we know of something that might be of interest to them. Beginning in 2014, we began holding what we will do every year, an annual developers luncheon, where updates are provided by our city manager, community development, and economic development. And then we stay in touch with property owners and managers, letting them know about services, potential tenants, and our revitalization grant incentive. The piece where we work on business education, every year we come up with 4 or 5 sessions that we offer, or we provide lunch, and we offer this at no cost to those doing business within Littleton. So in February, we did big business marketing on a small business budget. This session focused on adapting big business marketing tactics to a small business budget. In May, we did terrific tech tools. This is one we repeat every year. The session provides information on off-the-shelf tools that can help business owners keep pace in a rapidly changing world. We covered free and low-cost tech solutions for common business challenges like managing productivity, internal business processes, and profitability. In July, a local copyright and patent attorney agreed to present on protecting your business assets. He was helping people understand that intellectual assets may need to be protected by copyright, patent, trademark, or trade secret laws, and that was also very well received. In 1 week, we'll be doing maximizing your online presence. And since the world of internet marketing and search engine optimization is constantly changing, staying current is very important to our local businesses, and so we do a lot of research and present on the best practices for website marketing, optimization, and creating compelling content. Then we kind of move on to business development and growth tools. So I wanted to kind of show you
All right, Mark.
Well, I apologize. If you are on the city website and you go to the economic development section of the city website, we have a number of different tabs, but we have one in particular that's called Business Resources and Services. And it includes 3 buttons that describe things, but the one that we think is most useful for emerging businesses is called Starting a Business. And if you click into this, it has 5 steps that you go through for planning and starting a business. And it includes things like a cash flow analysis spreadsheet that has built-in calculations, a self-employment tax calculator, payroll tax calculator, business templates, business planning templates, and all kinds of other tools. So this was built based on the fact that when I started my businesses, none of this was available. And so now people can go to this one resource on our site and pick up all these tools and use them. So I apologize that that doesn't display. The other thing is just the revitalization incentive grant, and a lot of you got some information on that during budget. But just to tell you, we have, over the last 3 years, seen $1,516,000 worth of private investment, and our grants have been at 72.5. So it's working the way we're hoping it will. So that's about it, unless you have any questions.
So any questions? Councilmember Cole?
Yeah, first, we didn't all get copies. Can we all get copies of what you brought?
Well, I will send it to you. I have to pull out any particulars, but I will.
This was the
In green.
Yeah, but we didn't all get it.
it's coming around.
Okay.
You can have, there's one over here for you.
That's different.
So, do you have an idea, I mean, have you, going back to something you said at the very beginning about the longevity, helping them recruit people, the way you're doing, do you have any idea how successful, like whether those people prove out? Do they last?
Well, that's a really good question. What I can say is that most of these companies, we touch base with them where we've done recruitment stuff for them, and they will let us know, as this one did, that they've used these recommendations to hire. But then we don't necessarily know if the culture changes. Maybe they downsize. Maybe they've hired somebody who has been made an offer somewhere else. But we can probably get more statistics on who's utilized what we've provided and hired versus how long they've stayed. So.
Okay, thank you.
Go to Councilmember Hopping and then Councilmember Beckman.
This is kind of further down the food chain than a lot of the stuff you're doing, which sounds wonderful, Denise. One of the coolest marketing things is window displays. And they really draw people in. I mean, New York does a great job with that every Christmas. It's a tremendous cultural tourism device that brings a lot of people in. Do we work with people on windows? Because that's a different art than retailing.
It is.
And do we have anything to do with that? I mean, it would really be fun to have a...
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up, because we did discuss whether or not we would approach the downtown merchants in particular about merchandise displays. And I learned this from my own business, that you kind of have to keep things fresh and vital and all of that. And we have talked about going out and finding a consultant maybe that could help our merchants with that kind of thing. So we'll probably revisit that. We're trying to kind of build more warmth with our relationship down there, and I think that they'll be more amenable to that suggestion in the next few months.
I may be able to help you with that. So
Yes, thank you.
that'd be good.
Councilmember Beckman?
In the different scenarios you used for examples at the beginning, one of the ones that concerns me is, and I don't think it was in your scenarios, is a business that appears to be doing relatively well, and suddenly the doors close. And that just happened recently up at Woodlawn with a business. And I'm wondering if we can get into, for those that are interested, and I understand some would not be, but whether there's a place in that business cycle where we could, in some way, perhaps keep them from closing their doors with some references or some assistance.
Well, part of how we've tried to approach that is with the property owners or property managers. The shopping center malls, the strip centers are the most problematic. And recently we've had more success. I don't think it's a secret, Woodlawn recently sold. And the gentleman that is representing the property management company actually called me, and we just met with him. And so I think it's the beginning of a very good relationship. We gave him a lot of information on what we can do and said, we'd love to meet with your merchants. If you see things declining or you know of anything that is problematic, please let us know. And so he will do that. It's really hard to get business owners to admit when things are not going well. One of the things we'd asked about was there a way to find out if people had issues with sales tax payments, but we can't gather that information. So it's pretty much going to be us hitting these businesses, making sure they know what we do, and hoping that they're open to assistance.
Thank you.
Denise, in the area of keeping an open communication, particularly with the property owners, when early on you said underperforming relative to their expectations. That means you're actually getting under the covers with regard to what their expectations are. How do those conversations kind
Where
of
do
go
they come
without?
from? Property managers will tell us. When things start to decline and they're having to drop their lease rates and it's more difficult for them to attract notable or sustainable tenants, then they're more inclined to divulge that information. And part of it's based upon not franchises per se, but maybe somebody landing that has more than one location and another location is doing remarkably well and this particular location is very much underperforming.
And then,
An example of that would be the shopping center at Prince and Santa Fe.
Yes, yes.
thank you. The other is with the educational classes that you do offer, and at least ones that I've observed, at least in part, they tend to be held here at the city center. And how many businesses do you attract? Because I know it's kind of a handful is probably an okay session, but how do you track that and the participation that folks go through on that?
Well, we have events that we use to set up for information about these sessions and the registration. And it's similar to Google Docs in that the registration information dumps into a spreadsheet so we can know who's coming and we have their contact information. So not only do we track who's coming, but then we do a follow-up. We find out if they enjoyed the session and we survey them, do a brief survey, so then we can kind of gauge whether or not people felt it was a useful session. But to give you an example, the first session in February we had 17 people attend. May 15, July 17, and the one that we're offering next Thursday, 21 have signed up as of today. So it gets a little hard to have interaction if you get much past 20 people, so we try to keep it a little bit lower.
Okay. And then with the window displays, I want to follow up a little bit on what Councilmember Hopping asked, which is you mentioned about finding a consultant. Is that someone we would make available? Because I can't imagine that we exactly want to get in competition with some of the marketing firms in town that might feel like they also offer that kind of service.
I haven't done this here, but in the past when I've worked for the Business Resource Center, when we asked a consultant to help us with our businesses, part of it was a tickler for those businesses. So we would ideally find a consultant that's in Littleton, and then they would agree to do some kind of presentation for merchants, maybe best practices or things to consider, and then that would be an opportunity for them to follow up and maybe get more business from them.
And my last question, I don't know if anyone else has any others. My last question is to do with something I'm not expecting you exactly to answer right now, but as you are not on the shoot everything that flies and claim everything that falls, between yourself and the city manager, what kind of metrics are being used for determining success? And I imagine it's not a simple answer, so it might be something you can address at time through the city manager.
Well, it probably would be worth a discussion. For me, part of it would be, first of all, do appropriate projects materialize, get built, and then are they sustainable or do they sustain? And the other piece, when it comes to retention, would be, we have open dates with our businesses and then we catalog all of the interactions with them, so we could fairly readily determine, how long they've stayed in business. Now, here's the problem with that kind of measurement. I mean, we can say, oh, look, this business has been here for 15 years and they've worked with us 5 times and that has been a contribution to their success. It may or may not be. But we can measure the businesses when they come in and how long they're with us. And we have added some questions to our business licensing process that will allow us to know when they open, who they've hired, I mean, how many people they've hired and what their projected income is, and so then we can check in at later dates and find out if they've hired more people or if their revenue streams are improving.
I remember when Paul Washington came down from Denver and was presenting it. One of the things that they have as a fairly active program is the lease renewals. When they come up and when they're not going to be renewed, and I thought that was interesting. It was also, I did have a chance to talk a little bit with the folks from Engrain that were here earlier this evening. Out of their 50 or so employees, 10 might be residents. That was their guess at the moment. Residents within the city, but 40 come in to the city. And so consistent with the change that's been happening over time is that we've become more of a employment center with more folks coming to Littleton to actually work than we do have folks leaving Littleton to work elsewhere.
Well, and that's a really good point. And part of what we're working toward with other departments is how we collect information. And, you know, it's pretty much based on what people are willing to tell you if it's not a mandated field. But we're working to develop more relationships with property owners and property managers so that they can keep us involved with attrition and things like that. But we're definitely considering better ways of measuring growth with existing business.
Well, and the part that was interesting is Engrain's located at Riverside Downs, and I think it was mentioned about 17 of their staff, which is about a third then, actually use a combination of light rail and bike. So they actually take their bikes onto light rail and then commute from the station. So that was interesting. And
yeah,
my other conversation was with the folks down at Tattered Cover that have recently moved, that the staff there really like it because they get provided with a light rail pass, and it's close to the
that's great.
center. So thank you. Any other questions? Denise, thank you very much. And
thank
so appreciate that, and thanks for the update. And
Thanks, Denise.
okay, and next we have Andy Hancock, who's here speaking to us from the perspective of the Littleton Business Coalition. And although he's not this year's chair, he's standing in for that. And as many of you here know, Andy's not only professionally with First Bank and all that they do for our community, but he's also the chair of the South Metro Housing Option Board. Andy, the floor is yours.
Oh, boy.
Thank you.
I didn't even know we had this, but this is actually the Littleton Business Coalition's vision and mission statement. Well, the Littleton Business Coalition is actually a subgroup of the South Metro Denver Chamber. And it was brought together I think 5 years ago or so. Basically, just a group of people within the South Metro Denver Chamber to focus on issues within Littleton. And so we are a growing group, but we have done a couple of pretty nice events focused on what's going on in Littleton. We had the council discussion on Tuesday night, which was the Littleton Business Coalition. We had a conversation with Congressman Kaufman earlier this year. We helped coordinate and facilitate the gardens at Arapahoe High School, the new gardens that were built there. And so our focus, and the biggest thing that we've started is that every Thursday morning, and you're all welcome to join us, we meet at Solid Grounds and just talk about things that are going on within the community. And the biggest thing is just to get a pretty diversified group, hopefully, of people within Littleton and talk about what's going on in their business within Littleton and how we can work together to solve things or talk about things or what's going on. Just be informed about Littleton. And I think the genesis of it is probably just a small town and everybody has coffee and figures out what's going on in the city and how to solve it. And, so we have about 10 members. Well, it's a little bit hard to say we have members. We have about 10 or 12 people that actively work with us. We have a member of the LPS Some people think construction industry. Dave Shefty's actually our president, who's Health South down on Mineral. Jason Dunkel from Littleton Adventist was our past president. And so we just focus on things that we think affects Littleton, that people within Littleton and our group would like to know about, and that's what we talk about. And I should say that the reason, as a business owner, South Metro Denver Chamber does a great job. We are a member of them. The problem is that they are widely focused. It's all of South Metro Denver. And so if you want a more specific focus, this was our idea, was I'd like to know what's going on in Littleton and to have a venue that we could just talk about Littleton things, not just the whole South Metro Denver. And so that's the genesis of this, and that's why we started it.
And it was Norm Stucker and I think Councilmember Cole and I were at the initial meeting. So.
Yeah. And it's been great, too. I mean, we've highlighted businesses, and that's what I like the best about it, is we've highlighted businesses. And so we've met at Norgren, which you never really knew what went on at Norgren, and got a tour of that. And so different businesses and understand what they do and why they're in Littleton and how they're affected by Littleton. And so that's our goal.
Questions from council or comments?
So what time are the meetings?
8 o'clock on Thursday.
Thank
Yeah.
Andy, I guess, as far as the agenda, what Denise was describing is sort of at the business-specific micro level. In terms of how are you guys having conversations with staff in terms of, are there things that as a community, as a city, we could do that would be in collaboration with the business community more broadly? Have there been ideas that have been brought forward that the city and the council should be starting to noodle on a little bit more in terms of the overall business environment?
No, I don't think anything directly. I mean, it's interesting because some of our members are new to Littleton, and so it's interesting to understand their process of how they got to Littleton and what that process was and whether it was good or bad or whatever. And then we have some members that are in construction, and it's good to understand, well, what is the reputation of Littleton and all that. But I don't think we've organized enough to actually have an interface with the city to say, these are the things that we as our group think are issues or things that we could work on together. We haven't done that yet.
I mean, I think I could see just in general, for example, with the marketing efforts that were discussed, if part of that marketing activity for prospective businesses was to connect them with other people in Littleton Business Coalition to sort of share experiences and encourage people to locate. I think I remember being at a chamber meeting where they sort of talked about that kind of thing. I know it's a regional thing for them in terms of, we all win if the region wins.
Right.
But yet at some level, you've got to land somewhere, so why not here? And one of the ways to do that is almost, marketing/recruitment by talking to other folks. I don't know if that's one that would be.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of interesting because like the Falls Event Center, when they started building, I got a call out of the blue from them that just says, we're looking for bankers in that area, and we want to meet with you about what's going on in Littleton, and 2, can you put us in contact with the chamber? So I think it is a natural progression for a business that's moving into this area to maybe research this area through the chamber. So there's naturally, I think, some good information and things that we should do together with the city.
Okay. Good. Thanks.
Comments, questions?
Yes.
So, Andy, one of the things that the Littleton Business Coalition started on were actually 2 interest areas. One is not necessarily restricting the participation to those folks that are members of the chamber.
Right.
And so for those folks that might be aware, somebody's moving to town, they don't have to be a chamber member to necessarily show up for this. The other that I haven't heard much about is some interest in saying, hey, is there an opportunity for business-to-business market development or connections to be made across the group? And it was always perceived as somewhat being a little bit of a challenge because Littleton, we only have our 14 to 16 square miles. Does that come up in discussion at all?
The business to business? We haven't.
Other than you as a banker?
Yeah. No, I mean, one of the things that we just started to do was to understand what businesses are in the city of Littleton and how do we reach out to them and how do we get them involved and have those conversations. But we haven't really gotten as far as that. But I know, one of the other branches that I manage is in Lone Tree, and I know that is a big focus of them, and they've been very successful at that. They've also been pretty successful, I think, at being a pretty good marketer of the city of Lone Tree. And I think, obviously that would be ultimately a goal of ours.
Well, it's nice for business folks to actually, not just to hear from Denise and her staff, because they're part of the city, but to actually hear from other businesses that are here that have the opportunity to have a different perspective.
Yeah. Well, it's a small town in a big city, so that's good.
Other questions or comments? Andy, thanks for coming by.
Yeah.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Andy. Next up is the South Metro Denver Chamber representative, and this evening we have the Executive Vice President of Economic Development within the South Metro Denver Chamber, and Mr. Doug Tisdale.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Auctioneer extraordinaire, right?
We have lots of fun doing lots of things, promoting and celebrating. And if I may, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, pass these down this way for you. And I thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. For the sake of your record, my name is Doug Tisdale. And as the mayor indicated, I am the Executive Vice President for Economic Development with the South Metro Denver Chamber. And Mr. Bob Golden, who is our President and CEO, sends his warm regards and his apologies for not being able to be with you here this evening as well. Unfortunately, he was otherwise committed, but he felt that perhaps I might relate well with a municipal government crowd, and so it's my privilege to be here doing that.
We'll take a straw poll later.
Indeed, yes. I've handed out to you a copy of our Economic Report 2015. We actually prepared this a couple of months ago for Arapahoe County, because Arapahoe County is a member of the Chamber, the city of Littleton is a member of the Chamber, a number of our municipality and governmental entities in the South Metro area are members of the Chamber, and we are very, very happy to have that membership, that collaboration with all of you. And I will run through some of these things, not the whole thing, but just to highlight some things for you, and then I'd be happy to deal with questions. We begin, if you look at page 2, we are in large part guided by the definition of economic development that MDC has provided, the process by which a community creates, retains, and reinvests wealth and improves the quality of life. And that's really our goal for the entire South Metro region. And when we speak of the South Metro region, we actually, from my perspective, and I don't speak necessarily officially for the Chamber in this regard, but from my perspective, I describe it to people as from Alameda Avenue all the way down to Castle Rock, and from C470 to the Hogback. That generally is the geographic area of influence that the South Metro Denver Chamber addresses. And the beauty of it is, and I'll talk about this more in a moment, is that we deal with all of the communities in that region, working to help them experience the highest level of prosperity that they possibly can. That is our goal. Our watchword at the Chamber is prosper. In terms of our pillars of service, where we tend to focus ourselves, they are three, and that's public policy, economic development, and business engagement. Public policy relates to the fact that we do, and I'll describe this in greater detail, engage in monitoring the legislature and federal legislation relative to the impact on business, so that we do not have legislation that is passed at any level that impairs business in their running of their enterprises in a way that will help all of us in our community benefit. Economic development is to encourage that economic development in whatever fashion that we can, so that we can, in fact, create, retain, and reinvest wealth and improve the quality of life in each community. And business engagement is the standard classic model of a chamber, the business-to-business engagement, where people can, in fact, by virtue of their networking and their connections, have that benefit of prospering. When you look at the committees on page 5, you'll see that Littleton Business Coalition is, in fact, a significant part of our chamber. We're very happy that the relationship we have with the government in Littleton is such that we have put together a group of business leaders in Littleton who focus on their particular needs. The chamber, though it is regionally focused throughout that region that I described, southern Denver and South Jeffco, Arapahoe, and Douglas, also looks at each of the areas within that to see how can we help them maximize themselves. And we have, as you see on page 6, approximately 91 members of the Littleton Business Coalition. You'll see in terms of the events that we just highlight the overall picture of the Chamber's activity on page 7. We average about 20 events per month. This one actually enumerates the specific events January through April, and you see some of the broad range of things that we cover in our presentations. And we are very honored at the fact that many of you have taken the opportunity to be with us at our chamber programs, and it's extremely worthwhile for us, and we hope it is worthwhile for you as well. The page 8 presents information relative to a very exciting event that we have coming up, in fact, in just a couple of weeks. The first annual Colorado STEM Summit, and the Chamber has put this together in collaboration, and that's a word that I will use a lot, in collaboration with a number of other organizations. The Chamber is sponsoring this first Colorado STEM Summit on Friday, October the 30th. It will be at the Marriott DTC. We're very happy that Lieutenant Governor Joe Garcia will be the initial keynoter in the morning, followed by Norman Augustine, who's the former chair of Lockheed Martin, and many would say actually the person who invented the concept of STEM and brought to the public the importance of STEM education and how it impacts the growth of our economy by having students who can, in fact, readily enter the workforce in a prepared fashion and help our companies prosper. Then the luncheon keynote speaker will be Thomas Friedman, a New York Times reporter and columnist and author who really helped to give STEM its dramatic surge in popularity and significance throughout the country. So we have about 600 people who will be there. I think at last count we actually had 550 signed up as of this morning. So we're going to hit our target of 600 people, and it will be an extremely worthwhile experience. The annual economic forecast breakfast we're actually going to do on Friday, January the 15th of next year. Sometimes it's been in December, sometimes in January. Because of the STEM Summit and other activities I'll address, we're actually moving this one to January the 15th. We did have recently on September the 1st our Ignite and Elevate conference, which our Women in Business group put together, and we were extremely pleased that Jackie Hinman, who is the first female CEO of CH2M, was our keynote speaker for that. And we had hundreds of people there, principally women, because it was focused on women in business and trying to make sure that they felt that they had a voice and an impact on economic development, were in attendance and enjoyed that. I know when you look at page 11 and you see Business Leaders for Responsible Government, many of you are aware of that and have been involved in that. We have approximately 170 members who participate with us in monthly meetings, and while the legislature is in session, when no one is safe, we sometimes have semi-monthly meetings, so we'll meet twice a month instead of just once a month, and monitor closely that. But we've had very interesting discussions, and again, you've been at many of those, so I won't repeat all of that. The information is here, but they've been focused on the opportunity for business leaders to help work with electeds and policymakers and give them the insights that they need in order to craft worthwhile legislation that will assist business and to avoid the adoption of legislation that will hinder or hamper business. Our Legislative Action Committee is part of that as well. It is directly focused on the review of the actual bills that come before the legislature. We've had very good results in terms of our positions that the Legislative Action Committee has taken concerning various bills, and we do enjoy the collaboration with the Douglas County Business Alliance in doing that, because they also have a paid lobbyist who can assist us, and we need to have direct interaction with the electeds that we might not otherwise be able to get. Most of us at the Chamber and most of our members of the Chamber have at least one or two or perhaps many more legislators with whom they have a direct relationship and can communicate, but it does help to have a lobbyist who is schooled in understanding how the legislative process works and how some of those bills might be handled.
You mean things like not standing on the floor?
Say it again?
You mean things like being in the chamber and not standing? The etiquette.
The LAC member composition, you'll note on page 14, is a very diverse group, and we've done that to make sure that we are in fact addressing all of the spheres of business that we have here in Littleton, in Englewood, in Centennial, in Greenwood Village, Lone Tree, Castle Rock, Parker, and beyond. The meetings you'll see on page 15 with various electeds are consistent and regular, and they are a way of making sure that the South Metro Denver Chamber is heard and is in fact heeded during the course of the legislative session. We give some of the examples and highlights of the bills that we addressed on page 16. The legislative outreach goes beyond just the State House in Denver. If you look at page 17, we have an annual legislative action trip that we take to Washington, D.C. This year it will be November 3, 4, and 5, and we will take 20 business leaders along with 10 people from the Colorado Business Roundtable, with whom we collaborate a great deal as well, because Jeff Wasden, who heads up the Colorado Business Roundtable, is also a member of the Chamber and is on our board. And so we collaborate on that to get a critical mass to go to D.C. to meet with all of our congressional delegation in D.C. and with a number of other officials to address matters of importance to the members of the Chamber. If you look at page 18, we have what we call, I'm sorry, yes, Mayor?
Does that coincide with NLC conference?
It does not, no.
Okay.
And that's, interesting because we talked about that, and I said, well, some of our electeds, of course, like to go to NLC. And I've enjoyed the opportunity to share time with many of you back in D.C. for NLC. And it's one of those things that we just had a different focus relative to the time. And I said, well, and of all things to pick election night, I mean, some people actually care about that. At least on the municipal level, I know some of us, have cared about that. Maybe in the past, at least, and maybe some presently. But it is, as I say, a matter of timing that between other issues that we had with staff and with all of the other programming that we had, this was the best date that was available to us. We highlight on the next couple of pages some marketing and visibility issues. One of the things that we are very proud of is that people know about the South Metro Denver Chamber. They talk about the South Metro Denver Chamber. They hear about the South Metro Denver Chamber. And when they do, they're hearing about Littleton. They're hearing about Lone Tree. They're hearing about Centennial. They're hearing about Greenwood. They're hearing about Englewood, because we are dedicated to making sure that each of our cities and towns, Sheridan, in the South Metro area, do have an exposure that helps them maximize the profit and the prosperity of the businesses that are here. That's our bottom line. And we always gauge every activity that we have to that. So you see the various marketing and visible opportunities. If you look, for example, on page 21, you'll see we're exceptionally engaged in social media as well, because that's a big part of it. We are about to announce the unveiling of our new website as well, and I know that's something that some people get very excited about, and some people say, okay, they have a new website, big deal. But it's actually intended to be more interactive and more responsive to members' needs. So when you're looking for information about businesses, you can actually find that information more readily, and you can filter through based upon industry and so forth. And one of the improvements that we're looking at doing as well is to be able to filter through on the basis of locality. What city are you in? And that's something that we again think works well with Littleton Business Coalition and with the other chambers with whom we collaborate. And on page 22, you'll notice the reference to Community Media of Colorado, the Independent and so forth, the Denver Business Journal, and the Villager newspaper. And please don't tell Bob and Jerry Sweeney that we forgot the R on the word Villager. But we're going to fix that, I promise. We have much more than just these two advertorials, because since this was prepared, we've worked through with the Villager, and you now see essentially a page every month that is just South Metro Denver Chamber, and we highlight in that our various businesses, our various committees, and we have articles of interest. I think because it's dated Thursday, but as cities, we all get those on Wednesday. If you look in tomorrow's Villager, I think you will see the article on the STEM Summit, and the Corridor is their new business section that they've added to the Villager, and that comes out once a month. And I have a regular column that appears in the Corridor. Mike Fitzgerald and I each are sort of regular features in the Corridor, and our job is to spend time advancing the interests of our members and showing what is the business level of activity, interest, and so forth in South Metro Denver. The Economic Development Group, which is the group that I specifically head up, works on the philosophy that we use, and I know that at least two of your number here are familiar with this, at the Metro Mayor's Caucus. And that's a rising tide. We collaborate with each other because we know that a rising tide raises all ships. And it's only by working to help the region's economic health that any particular city will actually enjoy that benefit. There is no such thing as a city being able to advance itself and prosper without having positive impact on the other cities around you. And that's one of the benefits that we have, and particularly with our South Metro view of the world. We think that the north is a wonderful area. We think that the eastern suburbs, we think the western suburbs are all terrific. But we all understand that in terms of education levels, in terms of concentration of large employers, in terms of the impact on the economy of the various employers that we have, that South Metro really houses all of that. And that's why at Metro Mayor's Caucus we created the South Metro Mayor's Munch that we have. And so monthly, the mayors in Cherry Hills Village, Greenwood Village, Littleton, Englewood, Centennial, and Sheridan get together so that they can talk and share best practices, share ideas, perhaps vent from time to time, and do in fact create that spirit of collaboration that helps the entire region, and that help to the entire region helps each member of the region. Some of our activities are highlighted there. I won't go through all that. You see what our deliverables are. Part of it also, on page 25, we mentioned the business retention and expansion interviews that we've been doing, and some of you have participated in that, and particularly the mayor has been very engaged in working with us on having the meetings and interviews with specifically non-members of the chamber. The question was asked earlier by the mayor relative to Littleton Business Coalition in trying to make a welcoming environment for people who are not members of the chamber to participate, but who are Littleton businesses. That's exactly the kind of thing that we want to see happen. We're not looking to make this an exclusive club that you have to have a secret handshake and a password to get into. We're looking at making it a collaborative, engaged process that brings everybody to the table so that we benefit from that dialogue and from that sharing of experiences. That's what we want to see happen. We obviously, as a chamber, selfishly hope that at the end of the day, those businesses will decide, this is very good for me, it's very helpful for me, I would like to join the chamber. But it's not a precondition to participating in the Littleton Business Coalition, because that's something that promotes for the city and for the entire region. And then on page 26, you'll see a brief description of the Global Commerce Initiative. And I know that at least the mayor was at the Colorado Consular Corps celebration that we had on June 22nd, which was...
Say that quickly.
That's right. It was the Chamber in Canada's Colorado Consular Corps Collaborative Celebration, which it was the 7 Cs. And we did that in order to highlight the fact that, first of all, we want to have international companies look to the South Metro region as a place where they can locate and do business. And we want our companies in the South Metro region to understand that they have markets that are global markets that they can reach out to. We have one small manufacturer who, in fact, manufactures a niche product, and these are the Kota longboards, but they sell a significant portion of their inventory in other countries around the world. We want to see that continue to happen and to grow, and the South Metro region is a big part of that. And in no way, once again getting back to our collaboration with all of the communities in the region, all of the businesses, and all of the chambers, in no way are we in competition with the Metro Denver Economic Development Corporation, for example. Tom Clark and I have spoken. Tom is focused on getting flights. I'm focused on giving people something to do once they get off of those flights. And that's how we work together. In the strategic collaborations, you'll see highlighted on page 27 some of the various organizations with whom we do work. And then on the last page, 28, you'll actually see, speaking of Mike Fitzgerald and the Denver South Economic Development Partnership, a letter that he was kind enough to send that we could share with the county commissioners relative to the collaboration between Denver South, EDP, and South Metro Denver Chamber of Commerce. So with that, I can tell you that we are extremely happy to have the City of Littleton as members. We want to remind all of you that you as the electeds and your staff, your department heads, your directors, your staff members, are welcome to attend all of our events. And we have the Economic Development Group monthly investor breakfast, and we just had one last Friday. We had J.B. Holston, who is the brand new dean of the Ritchie School of Engineering and Computer Science at the University of Denver, come and speak to us, along with Kevin Sullivan, who is an architect who has done significant projects at DIA and for Denver Water. And then we had Wayne Reed, who's the deputy city manager in Centennial, come and talk to us about engineering for the future. And then we have our next meeting on Friday, November the 13th, because nothing is unlucky for members of the chamber. And that will be at the Lone Tree Arts Center at 7:30, because we do like to get around, too, in the region and not just have all the meetings at the chamber, so that people can see what's going on throughout the region and understand why we have such a gem here and why it is such a privilege for me and for all of our staff to promote and celebrate. And as I've told people, I loved being a mayor. That was a lot of fun. But now I get to promote and celebrate all the time, and nobody ever yells at me for it. And I thank you for your time. And I'm happy to respond to any questions.
Council, questions or comments? Bruce Stallman? I'll start.
Thanks for
recognized once earlier. So.
Okay, great. Appreciate you coming in, and it's an extensive and impressive resume of all the activities. It's good information. Two questions.
Yeah.
One of your strategic priorities is infrastructure, and infrastructure is pretty inexorably tied to both business and government, particularly municipal. I mean, I know a lot of the infrastructure issues are CDOT related, but talk a little bit, if you would, about what you're doing to promote infrastructure development. And then the second one is sort of in a similar vein. Attainable housing issues are important for a lot of businesses because it's getting harder and harder for people, especially if the South Metro is, for the sake of an argument, broadly speaking, a more affluent area. So to find housing that's in proximity to jobs in the South Metro is becoming maybe more challenging. And what is the chamber looking to do in that area also?
Thank you. Those are two excellent questions. Concerning infrastructure, in fact, that was part of what our discussion was at the last meeting, and it was key to the question of engineering for the future. How do we address it? So part of what we do is education. And by education to our business leaders, we create an incentive for them, understanding the issue better, to help guide the electeds who may not have a good at other levels, not municipal. The municipal leaders get it. There was a great book several years ago, If Mayors Ruled the World. Municipal government gets it, and they understand what needs to be done. The problem is that other layers of government above our layer don't get it. Part of the way to get their ear is to have business leaders who are deeply connected to these other elected officials understand the issue and tell them that they have to create a solution, and also to create the opportunity for public-private partnerships that will provide solutions to that. And we've been doing a lot of that. So some of it is education. Some of it through the Legislative Action Committee is also advocacy. Advocacy for bills that would do that. Attainable housing is a fascinating discussion because some of you know that I was on the Metro Mayor's Caucus, and I was on the Executive Committee, and we created, and Mayor Cernanek was part of this as well, we created the Owner-Occupied Attached Housing Task Force for the Metro Mayors to start addressing this issue and try to get some change in some very ill-advised law that we have in Colorado that inhibits that construction. And I had lunch today, and I don't think she would be offended by my using her name, but Dr. Becky Takeda Tinker is the president of the CSU Global Campus. And I had lunch today, and she brought up the exact same issue and said that one of the constraints that she has in trying to hire good faculty, good staff, good leaders at CSU Global Campus is finding housing. And that if she's trying to recruit somebody from out of state, it's getting increasingly difficult to get them to be able to come here for the reasons that you address. And the hindrance to that, of course, is the fact that we don't have any condominiums being built. We got lots of apartments being built. We also have the highest rents in the country other than San Francisco. Who would ever have thought that there would be a day when we would say that the only rental market in the country, second to San Francisco, is Denver, Colorado? We're the only non-water city to experience that honor, if you can call it that, and it's something that we do have to address. We have worked diligently with the legislature through Business Leaders for Responsible Government, through the Legislative Action Committee, in trying to continue to get a solution. We know that the municipal solution that a number of cities have already adopted is a step. We also know that will be subject to court challenge. We don't know the results of that court challenge. I think it's a matter of local concern and not statewide concern, and therefore we ought to be able to show local control over that issue, but it's going to be out there. So we are continuing to work with the legislature in that regard as well. And it's one of those things that unfortunately, it is a tedious, time-consuming process. We hope that ultimately it will be a successful process. I have every reason to believe that it will be, but we're getting there. Also, do recall that those people who've been building apartments since this problem first arose all did so with the idea that 10 years from now we're going to convert those to condos, because they wanted to get past the statutory limitation period under the construction defects law. So you will start seeing in the next 5 years, some of those will start to convert to an ownership product because they were built that way with that in mind.
Councilmember Hopping?
When businesses approach you, let's say a consultant comes in or a business or representative of a major business company that wants to locate in the South Metro area, do you have people that work with them in order to go from macro to micro to focus site identification or general site identification and market match? How do you do that?
That, in the first instance, is something where our collaborations come in. We will speak to the region generally. When they get into more of the micro, we do put them in touch with Denver South Economic Development Partnership because it is a storehouse for a lot of information. And that's an area that they are able to do. So we work with them in making sure that they get the information about specific real estate available. I know that Mike and his staff are very well schooled on what you have in Littleton, what's available in Englewood, what's available in Sheridan. To speak of a small community that you wouldn't think would have that opportunity really to make a pitch, but there are some developable parcels in Sheridan where they have that information and they share that. What we do is we identify that in the first instance and then we put them in touch, because that's a little beyond our bandwidth in terms of the micro on that particular question. But we know where to send them.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, comments? I'll make one comment, Doug, which is one of the things that has struck me with the South Metro Denver Chamber has been the interest that businesses have in this area for the long term. Education has been a key and heavy item going down to the grade school level when folks are looking at future employable resources available that are employable. And there's been a number of also excursions on different practices as far away as taking a look at college and internships and how those work. And so that's very much there. And also, it's kind of, you drink the water, I think, once you come to Colorado, and the resiliency across the community and appreciation for the resources that are here and looking at the overall resiliency of the community. It's not, the businesses in general are not short-term focused. They tend to be very long-term focused in taking a look at that. And so it's not just what's my bottom line the next quarter, where some of their investors might be looking, but it's those folks that are looking for, because they're members of the community as well. And that's one of the things that has continued to strike me as I've worked with some of the folks that are there. So,
thank you. I appreciate hearing that because I think that's a very apt observation, and I thank you for sharing that.
And other comments? Any, Michael? So, Doug, thanks for coming, and give Bob our best, please.
I will do that. Thank you all very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And Council, just a couple of quick comments. Recognize that our next regular meeting is November 3rd. I know that's election evening, and who knows, we may be out before early results are posted. With that, in addition to the candidate issues that are on the ballot, we do have our, as far as local election is concerned, the charter amendments, the 10 of those that are on the ballot. And when folks have questions, I can refer them to the most recent Littleton report that has an explanation of those as well. And then just a comment, if you didn't see the invitation come through your mailbox at some point in time, Saturday is actually to the day, the 50th anniversary of the dedication of the Bemis Library, and so from 1 to 4 p.m. is the event this Saturday. So if you don't otherwise have it on your calendar, it might be something that you'd want to take a look at. I've heard rumors that Jerry Hill is sponsoring chocolate cake, but I'll leave that for Saturday afternoon. So any other comments? Okay, and with that, we're adjourned for the evening. Thank you.